יש שם, זה לא נפילות?
זה נפילות, אבא, זה נפילות. אבא, תרד, אבא, תרד.
תראה.
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is June 14th, 2025. It is actually accidentally Mr. Trump's birthday. And I'll be talking about the fact that Mr. Putin and Trump spoke to each other on the phone. But before we go anywhere, and I understand some people wait for me to come up here and start discussing every single streak on the skies of the air defense or anti-ballistic missile defense, which allegedly exists, which, as it turned out to be, not so much. In Israel, I want to stress again one thing. And before we go anywhere, and what you saw in the beginning, for example, there are a bunch of the videos and photos which now, circulating all around the world. And it's not about just explosions in Tehran or damage, for example, to some Natanz nuclear facility in Iran. No, we're talking about Israel. And we'll talk about it that, I will repeat again, neither Pentagon nor NATO, nor let alone Israel, can do proper operational planning. They don't know what it is. So, literally. And the question is not only just that they do not have proper models, which they evidently don't. Before that, I was really going soft on the, out of corporate, so to speak, solidarity and things of this nature, that maybe they just use the correct models, but they, as it's absolute fact, I can discuss it with anybody, including from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that, sure, they don't have proper information. They get the garbage in, garbage out, even when the model is correct. But now I begin to suspect that the models also are really, defective, to put it mildly. And we know that after what have happened in the last 48 hours, essentially, not just 24 hours, the only thing they know how to do is, if you will go back to a situation with, for example, special military operation, where there was a bunch of the ejaculations and popping champagne bottles, when they somehow damaged the Ukrainians, damaged a couple of the older bombers, and this was presented as the unheard of achievement. Well, yeah, they are good at sabotage, they are good at terrorism. In terms of the modern warfare, they are not. They are simply not ready. And if we go back to, let's say, Wall Street Journal, and take a look at what they represented as their anti-ballistic missile defense and air defense in Israel, as you can see yourself, they provide 4 different types of the weaponry. And they, for some reason, say that Israel operates impressive air defense system. Last time I was making presentation about it, I already stated that it's not impressive. It actually doesn't work. And we saw the demonstration of this in the last 48 hours. But as you can see yourself, you can, there are Arrow 3, which is anti-ballistic missile, Arrow 2, which is also anti-ballistic missiles, essentially, David Sling, which is all kinds of aerial targets, Iron Dome, what people continuously and continue misunderstand and misuse Iron Dome as some kind of exhibit A of the Israeli air defense. No, it is air defense system designed to intercept all kinds of the, Katyusha missiles, which are slow, predictable, which are launched by all kinds of the Hamas and Hezbollah fighters from the, somewhere in the middle of the administrative or civilian locations, and they are slow and easily intercepted. Iron Dome has no bearing on whatsoever on the intercept of the serious ballistic, let alone hypersonic targets, which, for example, Iran has aplenty. And as the result, when you look at antimony and all that, we have a complete, full, well, basically proof of what I am on the record for many years. The air defense of the Western countries, and anybody who thinks that Arrow 2, Arrow 3, or David Sling is Israeli or Rafael, look it up. I spoke about it for many times, and I will repeat again. These are primarily Raytheon or Boeing products, which of course are allowed due to Israel basically controlling US foreign policy in the Middle East to have their labels made in Israel, but reality is these are all American design main system. Now we have also the very well confirmed information that one of the THAAD complexes, Theater High Altitude Air Defense, which also supposed to intercept all kinds of the real advanced missiles, is there, and it doesn't work either. So this is the result. It doesn't mean, for example, that Israel, which miscalculated grossly, which you would expect from people whose background is primarily in terrorism and supposedly special, services or special forces type thing, like Mr. Netanyahu, who wouldn't understand the first thing about real war. So, and what they do not understand, this is 2025. This is not 1973. And obviously the first wave of the Israeli attacks on Iran was very much reminiscent of what Ukraine and MI6 and CIA tried to do in Russia with this attack, which of course have been grossly exaggerated, to put it mildly, in its success, quote unquote, and it was repeated all across Iran with all kinds of the diversionary recon groups, both by Mossad, and of course there are all kinds of the terrorist anti-Iranian groups, such as MAC. And so there are many willing participants to do this dirty job, and so yeah, they were doing this, launching, as was the case and is the case in Russia, from the inside of Iran and attacking a number of the air defense complexes. That is why the first wave of the Israeli attack essentially it was repelled. Air defense still worked, but it wasn't as effective in repelling as it could have been. Pardon me. So, what do we have? Well, let me put it this way. Iran launched a response, as anybody would expect. But I want to address here the issue not just of Trump and the United States being willing participant in all this atrocity against Iran and Iranian people, and allegedly the Iranian nuclear program. Well, let me show you something. There are many smart people who compile all kinds of lists. They just want those lists to exist for your information. You see, now it is 33 years since all kinds of the forecasts by Israelis and of course neocons and US Senate, Congress, what have you, all practically under the thumb of the AIPAC, that you see this, Iran in 3-5 years from nuclear capability, 1992. So 3-5 years, it should be 1995, 97. So, and you just can go over here and see for yourself that each year, 2010, Iran could produce a bomb within a year. 1 year passes by, 2011, nothing happens. And so, and now we have 2025, Iran days away from enriching uranium for a bomb, days to weeks by 2025. And so, when you look attentively at this list, you understand it has nothing to do with the Iranian nuclear program, but which, by the way, now probably will go ahead. If I would have been Iranian, I would. So, and of course we have also New York Times, which essentially has to admit that, well, essentially all this, as always, 24 hours, this informational operation, rather, let's say, copious amount of BS, which is, poured on people. Even New York Times says that essentially the the nuclear program hasn't been really damaged, and yeah, at least for now, whatever they say that means. And as you all know, and it has been stressed very many times, that Iranian nuclear program is deep underground, and I mean really, really deep. United States doesn't have capability to penetrate that thickness. Some people say, like our beloved Alistair Crook, he says that sometimes several hundred meters. There is very little that can actually penetrate that. You can try to penetrate it with the whatever you have, the deep penetration, and then explode specifically designed, directed nuclear charge. But even that may not necessarily be the end of it. So, and of course, it's spread all over the place. And as the result, what do we have? We know now that Iran cannot talk to the United States. You cannot trust Trump's word whatsoever, because United States from the get-go was on it. It was willing participant in all that, in the adventurism of Netanyahu and Israel's cabinet. And what can I say? Israel already is teetering on the brink of the economic collapse. Evidently, you all know the victorious quote-unquote Israeli army had its very tough time in small piece of land called Gaza, and was primarily known there for committing atrocities against the civilian population. But what do I know? And now we have Iran responding. Iran has thousands of the missiles. And as you saw yourself, when you look attentively at those dramatic pictures flying from the of the projectiles flying from Iran, Israeli air defense is not designed to deal with this. Neither is United States air defense. Those Patriots, those THAADs and everything, they cannot deflect. They can mitigate somewhat, intercepting one or two, maybe fewer targets, but judging by the essentially hysteria of the Israeli Defense Force, in the first moments of the waves, so to speak, of the Iranian response, I thought to myself, my gosh, this cannot be right? So I went there to their official site, IDF, Israeli Defense Force, and look at this. Suddenly, what do we have? Who would have thought? This is, this is, as they say, the best army in the world, the best air defense, best everything, the bestest of the bestest in the galaxy. Israel Defense Forces. Israel civilians are currently being targeted by the Iranian regime. The world cannot stay silent, really. So, well, obviously, when they target civilians in Iran, it's okay, but here we are. But it is the map which is fascinating, because this is, even if we considering the fact that, as they usually do, they embellish and exaggerate, but as you can see yourself, the whole territory of Israel has been attacked. And evidently, the effectiveness of the Israeli air defense and American air defense is about zero. It obviously the central locations in Tel Aviv has been attacked. You saw yourself, including the building of the staff of the Israeli Defense Force, all kinds of the other Israeli installations, and Navatim, or not only Navatim Air Base, but essentially the information is now about Dimon, the nuclear center, have been struck in Israel by Iranians. And as Iranians almost went out today on record with saying that Fars agency that actually we didn't start yet. And they said other 2,000 missiles are being ready. Allegedly, the first wave, not first, I mean, there were 4 waves, and allegedly all total was 600, pardon me, 600 missiles from Iran. Some of them were just regular ballistic missiles of the short to intermediate range. Others, as you could see yourself, Iranians definitely have now some kind of the hypersonic technology. And yes, those are fast, and they cannot be intercepted by any weapon which is produced nowadays in the United States or Western capital, let alone Israel. Well, again, Israel weapons are primarily American weapons. So, what do we have then? What is the result of all that? Well, the result of all that is the fact that United States cannot be trusted anymore. As you saw yourself, Mr. Trump, as always, in the immediate aftermath of the Israeli attack, went out with his tirade, being obviously absolutely militarily incompetent man, but for some reason, being treasonous, just cheating, stealing, stabbing you in the back. This has become the MO, modus operandi of the modern West, and they don't even have honor anymore. United States has no honor. It's a rogue state in terms of the foreign policy now. And what can I say? Israel suddenly recognized that they miscalculated, together with their big boss or big puppet. It depends on how you look at it, which is, of course, United States. As I already stated, they cannot do operational planning, let alone operational planning in something which they do not have real means of repelling, which is the modern missile exchange. And we're talking about modern missile exchange not from 1992. We're talking about, again, I repeat, 2025. And read my lips. There are no real specialists in air defense in the United States or Israel. Those people, I don't know what they sell. They sell garbage under the pretext that it can do something against their serious threat. Two factors which define it. Pardon me. Technologically, they are backward. They do not work. And operationally and strategically, they do not understand what they are dealing with. They do not understand the technological and strategic nature of the conflict. They think still that Iran is somehow, people of Iran, and believe me, there are many willing participants in that, especially there among urban intelligentsia, if you wish, in Iran, who are pro-Western, very liberal, and they still think that majority of Iranians want to get rid of Ayatollahs. This might be the case even. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not in Iran. But judging by the reaction and judging by the fact that Iran somehow perseveres, evidently it's not that simple. And as always, as the case with Russia, for example, where the CIA still think that Russia is in the 1990s, which tells you about everything you need to know about professional level of those people. So, and when you put this together, you get what we saw all in the last 48 hours. Israel literally gets itself pummeled into their utter submission, and this is just not all of it. And believe me, when you look attentively at the mayor of Rishon LeZion, for example, who actually many people properly compare this destruction to Gaza, you know what? I can tell you one thing. I'm really sorry for people of Israel. Make no mistake. I am not some kind of cold-hearted jerk, let alone I'm anti-Zionist, but I'm not anti-Jewish. Make no mistake. I am sorry that Israel became the hostage to, well, basically a bunch of the aventurists who are militarily incompetent, which they are, and who are, just absolutely do not understand what they are dealing with. And so Iran got them a little bit of their medicine, but as we know, because it is Mr. Trump's birthday, so, yeah, Vladimir Putin and Mr. Trump spoke about things. So, well, Vladimir Putin obviously congratulated Mr. Trump with his 79s, my gosh. And so, as Mr. Ushakov, Putin's aide, tells that Putin and Trump discuss Iran and Ukraine. So, what we have, so obviously, as you would expect, it's absolutely normal development. Russians call for de-escalation. It's normal. But Russians actually, if you look attentively at all Russian media and Russian official statements, Russia condemned Israel for what it did, as they called unprovoked. No, it was, oh my gosh, let's stop here. But despite such a complicated situation, the Russian and American presidents didn't rule out a return to negotiation track on the Iranian nuclear program, Putin's aide added. Putin and Trump also discussed the latest prisoner swap between Moscow and Kiev. The Russian president also confirmed readiness to continue negotiations with Ukraine after June 22. Well, what does that mean? You know what those negotiations are. Russians will continue to present their what is called memorandum, which is the conditions of surrender. And the more it goes, the more territory, obviously, Ukraine will be losing, and the more killed people will be on the Ukrainian side. And if you take a look attentively, actually, in the videos which begin to pour from Ukraine, you will see yourself, for example, when that's a car, that's center for the essentially drafting people, well, stealing them from the streets. You have 60 and 70-year-old people being taken from the street. There you go. Everything you need to know about the basically strategic situation on the front. And if we go there, which of course Mr. Kellogg probably will be very unhappy about it, you can see yourself today's losses of Ukraine. Yeah, that continues to be the slaughter continues. And as you can see yourself, just to give you an example, this comparison, it's a routine. Russians shoot down daily, 110, sometimes 350, all kinds of the missiles, all kinds of the UAVs, and you know what, it's just routine. And that's how the real air defense supposed to work. Not how Israeli air defense worked, so to speak, that it couldn't defend actually the Tel Aviv from the real external targets, unlike it was the case as it was the first day of the, or rather first hours with the start of the Israeli attack, which of course saw, what can I say, same pattern, same modus operandi, sabotage from the inside work job, and things of this nature. That they can do, there's no doubt about it. But in terms of the when actually Iranian air defense recovered and started to, evidently they, well, you have to recover in the first hour or so, the fog of war and things like that. It does repel now most of the what is being thrown at it by Israel. Now, anybody who thinks that I can avoid this, well, I can't. And again, make no mistake, there's a video again. Again, something was shut down. There is actually, people say there are F-35s which have been shut down. Now there is a speculation that actually Iran did have the Su-35s in the air, which of course has been confirmed by Iranian military already in January this year to Kommersant, including reporting that, oh yeah, well, we got Su-35s from Russia. Okay, so somebody shot down those aircraft and those drones, Israeli drones. And considering the fact that most of those Israeli guys pretend to stay away from their air defense zones and using all kinds of the standoff weaponry, I don't know, something brought them down. And there are F-35s, so, and we have to wait and see the more, so to speak, detailed video and for the evidence. But I can tell you one thing, it doesn't really matter. F-35, F-16 or F-15 doesn't really matter. If they go into the zone, they will be shot down. Again, Iran has a decent air defense. It is primarily indigenous, and for those people, this is kind of turns into the Q&A session. For those people who still believe that, oh, there is, you know, air defense, Russian air defense everywhere. No. The only Russian air defense Iran has, and it had it for more than a decade, it's one S-300 and I believe one S-400, which are located around Bushehr nuclear power station, which hasn't been attacked because there are Russian specialists working there. And Israel should know better than to do that. But the point is that they also tried to explode something near Bushehr, not in Bushehr itself. So yeah, same thing, sabotage, all those trucks carrying drones, all those terrorist groups penetrating and, you know, exploding those improvised explosion devices and things of this nature. So it will continue. And Iran has problem, obviously, with its top brass, if you wish, or top political top, that there are many people who would like to see the Ayatollah regime, not that I support it, I'm just saying it's just the way it is, gone. But there are many people who still think that, oh yeah, we have to surrender to the West and then everything will be just fine. They're stupid, but what can I say? They do exist and nothing you can do about it because they are as any liberals, pro-Western liberals, especially in those countries of the former Soviet bloc or in the South, they still believe in all those, basically privileges and, sneakers which will be given to them, and sweets. It will be all awesome for them in their life, and they will be, as they think, they'll be the puppets of the West in, Gauleiters. You know what Gauleiters are. Germans were, appointing people, including very low-level administrative figures on the occupied territories in the Soviet Union, and not only, who were collaborationists, pardon me. And that's what we have, collaborators, essentially. And there are many people like that in Iran, make no mistake. Yes, there are, there are still some in Russia, but most of them have been removed from power. So it's traditional thing, and but as we already saw, a lot of things didn't work out properly for Israel, and as I already stated, I am really sorry for seeing this. I hate see people suffering, I hate see destruction, but this is now what can I say, the only thing we can expect from Trump administration, which is nothing more than a tool in Israelis and AIPAC hands, and they will continue to do the Israel's bidding until the last Israeli now, I think, because evidently, no matter how we discuss things in terms of the damage, we know that Israeli Defense Force issued the order to forbade shooting anything on the video, so so they do not want to expose the scale of the damage. Simple as that. But I wouldn't have been me if I wouldn't conclude this with this, which is essentially just pretty much buttresses the main thrust or main point of my discussion with you today. Here it is. Mr. Hexet, yesterday, Western war hawks lack plan to defeat Russia, Pentagon chief. Western officials who speak on Ukraine winning the ongoing conflict don't have a real strategy for defeating Russia, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hexet has said. Well, for starters, obviously, most war hawks in the United States, they are militarily incompetent, including top brass, including American officers, who are those generals, admirals, who have no clue what they're dealing with. I don't know, it's something wrong now with the whole situation of the producing of the competent people in the United States. But Pete Hexet is correct. They do not know what strategy is. They really don't. They know the wording, the verbiage, they know how to use all those wonderful big hot words, in some text and depositions and, testimonies to their, Congress or what have you, or speak to their personnel, but they don't understand what strategy is. They don't teach their real strategy in the United States. And the last true strategist, again, probably went away with Ike. Ike was a true strategist. He was actually a great strategist. But again, Ike compared the scale of the Dwight D. Eisenhower to anything what is produced today and comes out of the U.S. military academies and becomes those generals and admirals. And you have to scratch your head that are those people even competent? Do they know even math? Let alone when we look attentively, as I already stated many times, that when you look at Sarah Payne, who teaches strategy, she has zero military background. She is historian by education. That means historian is a shaky proposition to start with. And she teaches in Naval War College. She teaches strategy. What kind of strategy does she teach there to those officers from the U.S. Navy? And not only U.S. Navy, there are all civilian and all kinds of people. What do they get there with that in the 8 months? How United States defeated Martians? Or, as Mr. Trump says, how United States defeated everybody in World War II? Absolutely. This is pretty much what they're being taught. They're being taught also that Russians are actually eating, pickled hedgehogs, and gather mushrooms because they are poor and, hungry, and Russia looks like the third world crap hole. That's what they are being taught. And then they look at this, oh yeah, those morons from Iran. Now Israel, look at this, Hollywood, look how great it is. Read Tom Clancy, how Israel participated in defeating, alien invasion. And the result is, you have the small Middle Eastern country in Levant, essentially small territory, which is essentially dependent on the United States. That is why it corrupted the American foreign policy utterly. It's blackmailed all those cowardly US senators and congressmen into utter submission because they are cowards, most of them are. They don't have principles, honor, integrity. They don't have anything of this. And so they think that they can go at the 88 million population country with the territory about 10 times, well, not 10 times, more than that, larger than theirs, and with industrial capacity, and actually pretty darn good mathematicians, physicists, engineers, and things like that. And they think that they can go against it. And guess what? Now the only thing which we can hope for is that, yeah, they somehow de-escalate. But here is the issue. It's classic operational planning, it's classic attrition model. Iran has resources, Israel doesn't. That's the thing which people have to understand. And when one looks at the military performance, quote unquote, of Israeli defense forces in Gaza, which amounted to essentially genocide, or look at the so-called wanted, I don't know, I mean, evidently they don't learn in the West, propagandized Israeli air defense or anti-missile defense, anti-ballistic missile defense. It's a backward. And it really doesn't work. And this is what we learned. And this time, evidently, Iran is really pissed off. And the only thing which Israel can do, as I already stated, and by Israel we mean United States and Europe, is continue to do what they did always best. Terrorism. This is what they are good at. The rest of it is just not in their grasp at all. And what can I say? I warned about it, but now we have the, again, visual evidence of that. And if you look at actually even on the physical geography of Israel, nothing is out of reach of Iran. And Iran is ready to use it. And it has way more than Israel can have, and let alone if United States can even provide anything of that. And this is what I wanted to tell you today, because I needed to obviously make a video and point out some critical things. And I didn't want to make this video hour and a half long. I could have made a 3-hour long video. But the point is, this is just the first kind of food for thought for you on how the old world dies, how the new world order comes in power. And, well, what can I say? It's Mr. Trump's birthday, and I don't think he is happy with, if he gets, of course, proper information about what is happening and how his masters in Tel Aviv actually performed. They performed dismally. This is what I wanted to tell you today about this all, and as always, in the end, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, guys, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee or two. I would really appreciate this. So have nice rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.